Your brain is hardwired to track whoever speaks the loudest. Cognitive psychology calls it salience bias. Within seconds, you assign competence to the most vocal person in any room before they have earned it. It is a systematic error in human judgment. And it is precisely why the most dangerous person around you almost never demands your attention. What they are doing instead is far more deliberate. Volume seizes the room long before anyone has a chance to weigh substance. A single loud voice, punctuated by broad gestures or sharp timing, stands out like a flare. The brain's fast-thinking system, what Daniel Kahneman called System 1, locks onto these cues in milliseconds. This is not just habit, it's a shortcut that worked well for our ancestors, who needed to spot threats or leaders quickly. But in a modern meeting or negotiation, the same shortcut can mislead. Salience bias means that whatever stands out feels important, regardless of its actual value. A raised voice, a confident stride, or even a sweeping hand movement can hijack attention. Within 5 or 10 seconds, people form judgments about competence and intent. Ambati and Rosenthal's thin slice research found that even a brief exposure, just a handful of seconds, can shape strong impressions. These snap judgments often favor the expressive and the loud, not because their ideas are better, but because their cues are easier to notice. The result is a room that orbits around whoever commands the most space, while quieter figures are filtered out before their substance is ever considered. Attention-seeking behavior works as an immediate social signal. It announces presence, demands acknowledgement, and often wins the first round of influence. But performing for the room is not the same as reading it. The quiet watcher, often overlooked, is not idle. They are gathering information, tracking patterns, and noting what others miss in the noise. Deliberate observation is slower and less visible, but it is built for accuracy, not speed. Visible confidence, projected through voice and posture, is easily confused with actual ability. The cost of this confusion is high. When attention stalls at the surface, the room misses everything that happens in the margins, the subtle shifts, the unspoken doubts, the context that only a patient observer detects. The loudest person may win the spotlight, but the most informed person often sits in the shadows, quietly mapping the room. In environments where fast judgment outruns careful evaluation, the difference between social signaling and genuine insight becomes the difference between show and strategy. Quiet behavior sits on a spectrum, not a diagnosis. According to the Big Five personality model developed by Costa and McRae, introversion is a stable preference for low-stimulation environments, not a sign of shyness or social anxiety. Where shyness brings distress and a fear of negative judgment, introversion simply reflects a choice to conserve energy, to observe before acting. This distinction matters. Shyness is about wanting to speak but feeling blocked. Introversion is about choosing when and how to engage. Strategic restraint is not avoidance. Some people remain quiet to keep their cognitive bandwidth clear, tuning into details and patterns that slip past those who rush to fill every silence. This self-control is supported by what psychologist James Gross calls the process model of emotion regulation. Before a reaction ever leaves the mind, it can be managed. Gross's model identifies attentional deployment, deliberately steering focus, as a way to stay present with another person's words, rather than being swept up by one's own impulses. Instead of reacting to every provocation or cue, the quiet observer lets the moment play out, gathering more information before making a move. Cognitive change, or reappraisal, is another tool. By reframing what's happening in real time, a listener can reduce the urge to jump to conclusions. This means that a quiet person isn't simply passive, they are actively shaping their own understanding, holding back until they have enough data to respond with precision. In this way, restraint becomes a form of intelligence, allowing for more accurate judgments and fewer costly mistakes. Communication researchers Carl Rogers and Richard Farson described active listening as a structured approach to understanding others. Paraphrasing, clarifying, and summarizing are not just polite habits, they are methods for turning listening into a disciplined intake of information. When a listener paraphrases, they restate the speaker's message in their own words, checking for accuracy. Clarifying questions resolve ambiguity, and concise summaries pull together the main points. Each of these steps slows down the exchange, creating space for reflection and reducing the risk of misunderstanding. Neutral affect and well-timed pauses are the quiet person's shield. By withholding emotional reactions, they keep the flow of information open, signaling that they are still considering what's been said. This delay is not indecision, it's part of a measured process that protects against premature judgments. In high-stakes settings, the ability to listen without leaking intent can be a decisive advantage. The quiet observer is not disengaged. They are engaged differently, using emotional control as both a filter and a tool for deeper insight. Restraint in social settings can be read as a signal, but the meaning is far from fixed. Anthropologists Joseph Henrich and Francisco Gil White drew a sharp line between two paths to influence: prestige and dominance. Prestige grows from perceived skill, insight, or specialized knowledge. It is a form of status that others grant freely, often to those who listen and speak with care. Dominance, on the other hand, takes shape through force, interruption, or overt control. It is visible, sometimes loud, and demands deference rather than earning it. Measured behavior, pausing before speaking, holding back from the rush to fill silence, can suggest confidence precisely because it does not broadcast a need to belong. People may interpret this calm as a sign someone knows more than they show, but restraint is a cue, not a guarantee. It can just as easily mask indecision or lack of preparation. The same quiet manner that inspires trust in one context can trigger suspicion in another. Gendered expectations complicate the picture. Social psychologists Alice Eagley and Stephen Carell have shown that when women adopt a quiet, deliberate style, it is often judged differently than when men do. In many environments, a silent man may be seen as strategic or self-controlled, while a silent woman is more likely to be labeled indecisive or disengaged. Cultural context and group norms shape these judgments, sometimes rewarding restraint, sometimes penalizing it. Quiet presence is powerful, but it is not proof of competence. The room reads restraint through the lens of its own biases. Status, gender, and culture all play their part. In the end, calm and silence can open doors to influence, but they do not close the case on ability. A boardroom in crisis rarely rewards the loudest voice for long. When a senior manager faced a stalled turnaround, she did not compete for airtime. Instead, she began each meeting with a single, open-ended question, then waited. Silence, held just long enough to draw out discomfort, turned the spotlight toward others. As team members filled the gap, their real concerns surfaced. Over several weeks, this approach uncovered hidden alliances and quiet resistance that had blocked progress. By reflecting back what she heard and pausing before every reply, she shifted the group's attention from posturing to problem solving. In the next 360-degree review, her consensus-building style was credited with an 18% improvement in team trust scores. Negotiation theory, especially the work of Fisher and Urey, suggests that silence is not just absence, it is a tool. When a lead negotiator in a major acquisition let a 5-second pause hang between offers, the seller, uncomfortable with the quiet, revealed their true priorities. One precise follow-up question, focused on interests, not positions, broke the deadlock and led to a 12% price concession. Silence, paired with a single calibrated question, can draw out what someone will not say when the room is noisy. Social mapping works on a different level. In a crowded networking event, a quiet observer tracks who gravitates to whom, who listens, who interrupts, and who is left on the edge. By noticing these patterns, a single well-timed introduction can connect two people whose interests align, opening doors that a loud pitch might never unlock. Habits like paraphrasing, leaving a beat before responding, and asking one exact question can be trained. But silence is not a universal asset. If it slips into passivity, or if a situation demands visible, vocal leadership, the advantage disappears. The quietest person in the room may hold the sharpest map, but only if they know when to step forward and be heard. In every boardroom, negotiation, or gathering, quiet presence remains the most overlooked form of leverage. Today, influence often hides behind restraint, not volume. As social noise grows, those who listen shape outcomes others miss. Sometimes, the quietest observer is already 3 moves ahead. Share your thoughts below.